A young man was meditating on his bed. In front of him, his hands were clasped in a weird yet relaxed manner. His chest peacefully rose and fell with the rhythm of his breath. Everything was just so natural with every breath he took. A pale white stream of what seemed to be air darted into the young man's nose and mouth, squeezing into his body and reshaping it. As the young man was meditating, a strange yet dim sparkle appeared for a brief moment on the plain black ring that he wore on his finger.
Who?
The young man slowly let out his breath and opened his eyes, blinking. A pale white light flashed across his black pupils. That was the dosha that had just been absorbed but not yet completely refined.
It took such great effort to get that dosha, but F*CK, it's disappearing again. No, please no.
The young man tried desperately to keep the disappearing dosha from slipping away, but to no avail. As the last sliver of dosha left his body, the young man's face changed from being calm to one of anger and despair, and his voice rose with fury. He curled his hands into fists and was rapidly clenching and unclenching them. Eventually, his visage transited from extreme anger to a forced grin. After all, there was nothing he could do about it. Wearily, he dragged his body off the bed and stretched his numb legs, with only dosha of a third stage. Such menial matters were always present. After having done a few exercises in his plain room, an old, wizened voice sounded outside of his door.
Young master, the clan leader has requested your presence in the hall.
The young man was the third son of the clan header, Xiao Yan. Above him were two brothers, but they had already left the clan in search of adventure. Only at the end of each year would they come back and meet their family. Overall, however, the two brothers were extremely nice to their little brother, Xiao Yan, even when he fell from being a genius to a piece of trash.
Coming?
Xiao Yan changed his clothes and went out. Outside of his room was an elder in a green robe. Let's go. Looking at the young man's fresh face, the elder nodded his head. But when he turned around, his eyes showed a flash of regret. If young master had his former talent, he probably would have been a great doji. Such a waste. The elder and the young man crossed through the backyard and finally arrived solemnly at the welcoming hall. After politely knocking, the two softly went in. The hall was quite large, but there were many people already in it. At the head of the hall were Izan and three emotionless elders. They were the clan elders and had equal importance to the clan leader. On the left, below the four were other elders from the clan. These elders didn't hold as much power as the clan elders, but nevertheless, they had quite a bit of say and weren't pushovers. Besides, these elders were young men that had shown promise and talent. On the other side was three strangers. Looks like they were the people that Zizan foretold last night. The young man's eyes quickly swept through the strangers. Of the three, there was an elder wearing a moon-white outfit. Although the elder was all smiles, his tiny eyes were full of energy. Restlessly scanning the room, Xiao Yan's sight dipped lower, stopping at the elder's chest. On his chest was a silver moon, and besides the moon were 7 shiny stars, 7-star da-do-shai. This guy's a 7-star da-do-shai, incredible. Xiao could barely refrain from gasping at the elder. The elder was stronger than his own father. In fact, he was the whole stars stronger. Anyone that became a da-do-shai was at least a power to be reckoned with. With that kind of strength, most places would probably rush for recruitment. To be able to see such a powerful person, it's not surprising that Xiao Yan was shocked. Beside the elder were a young couple. They were also wearing moon-white robes. The male was about 20 years old and had a handsome face. Coupled with a strong build, he was definitely the ideal type for any girl. Of course, the most important thing was, on his chest were 5 golden stars. This represented the strength of the young man, 5-star doji. To be able to become a 5-star doji at the age of 20 definitely shows the exceptional talent of the young man. With a handsome face and decent strength, this young man not only became the target of stares from young girls in the clan, even Zmi occasionally sent glances to him. But the looks that the girls gave had no effect on the young man. His entire focus was concentrated on the young girl beside him. The young girl's age was similar to Xian, which made Xian flinch. Her beauty even rivaled Zimei's. No, she was prettier than Zmei in the entire clan. Probably only Z's could rival her. No wonder the guys of Z clan chased girls outside of the clan. On the intricate ear of the young girl was a green jade earrings. As she moved around, the pieces of jade clinked together, chirping a beautiful melody and adding a hint of royalty to the girl. In addition, on the developing chest of the girl were 3 golden stars, a 3-star doji. This girl, if she didn't use any special methods, she must be an incredible genius. Ziyao's heart fell. She had talent rivaling his former talent. But Ziyao forced his eyes away from the cold beauty. No matter what, beneath Ziyao's immature appearance was a mature soul. Although the girl was very pretty, he kept himself from acting like a drooling slob. Ziyan's actions caused a slight tension within the girl. Although she wasn't the kind that had an entire universe revolving around her, her beauty and appearance wasn't bad. Ziyan's random glance over her was a first for her.
Father, 3 elders.
Walking quickly, Xian courteously greeted the Zizan and the 3 elders.
Ha, Yano, you came. Here, come sit.
Seeing Xian arrival, Zizan stopped talking to his guests and nodded in the direction of Ziyan, waving his hand to indicate for Ziyan to take a seat. With a slight smile, Xian ignored the lazy, almost hateful gazes from the 3 clan elders and searched for his seat. But he was surprised at the result. He didn't have a seat. My position in the clan is just sinking lower and lower. It was better before, but now, they even embarrass me in front of guests, these old geezers. Ziyao ridiculed himself silently. In his mind, he shook his head as if it could block the emotions that welled up within him, looking at the motionless Ziyan. The young clan members let out soft, mocking laughter, showing their happiness at seeing Ziyan be made a fool. Finally, Zizan realized Ziyan's predicament. A look of anger flashed across his face before being replaced with a bent eyebrow.
2nd elder, you.
Oh, really sorry. I can't believe that I forgot about young master. Here, I'll go get someone to prepare a chair.
The yellow-robed elder smiled at the staring Zizan. He patted his forehead in an act of self-criticism, but the belittling look in his eyes didn't fade.
Brother Ziyan, come sit here.
The clear voice of a girl rang across the hall. The 3 elders tensed, their gaze shifting to Zana in the corner. Their mouths twitched, but none of them said anything. In the corner, Zana closed the thick book in her lap and blinked at Ziyan. Looking at Zana's smiling face, Ziyan froze for a second. Quickly, he recovered, and after touching his nose, he walked towards Zun under the envious gazes of the surrounding clan members, and after what seemed like the longest few seconds, he plopped next to Zana. Ziyan whispered,
Thanks, you've rescued me again.
Zana lightly smiled, 2 small dimples appearing on her face. Her slender fingers flipped open the book in front of her. Even though she was extremely young, there was an air of intellectuality around her. After scanning through the page, Zana suddenly complained,
Brother Ziyan, you haven't sat beside me, alone, for 3 years now, right?
You you're a genius in the clan. Isn't it simple for you if you want friends?
Looking at the resentful face of Ziyan dryly laughed.
But the thing is, a certain someone snuck into my room every night when I was 4 to 6. And then that certain someone used a clumsy technique and weak dozy cha to strengthen my bones and meridians. Every time, the some person would get himself sweating profusely before leaving. Brother Ziyan, do you know who he is?
Zana paused for a moment and suddenly tilted her head and smiled towards Ziyan.
How am I supposed to know? I was so young back then. In fact, I could barely walk. How would I know?
Ziyan's heart began to beat violently. Forcing open a smile, Ziyan guilty turned his gaze to the center of the hall.
Haha.
Looking at Ziyan's reaction, a slight smile floated on Zana's face. Her sight moved back to the book on her lap, and as if talking to herself, she said,
Even though I know that person did it in goodwill, I'm a girl, right? How can I let someone carelessly touch me if I ever find out who did it? HMPH.
Ziyan's mouth began to twitch violently. Keeping his sight straight, he shut his mouth tight. In the main hall, Zizan and the 3 clan elders were talking excitedly with the strange elder. The guest seemed to have something weighing on his mind, yet every time when it seemed as if he was about to broach the subject, he would swallow back the words and change the topic. Each time he did this, the delicate girl next to him would give the elder a subtle yet firm glance. After listening on to their conversation for a while, Ziyan was bored by their conversation and his head was slowly drooping.
Brother Ziyan, do you know who they are?
Right when Ziyan was about to fall asleep from boredom, Zana, who was beside him, opened her ancient book and asked Ziyan.
Do you know?
Ziyan curiously looked at Zana.
Did you see the symbol of a silver sword with the clouds on the cuff of their robes?
Zana said with a light smile.
Oh.
Ziyan looked towards the cuffs of the 3, and indeed, there he clearly saw the embroidered symbol of a sword sparkling in the clouds.
They are from the faction of Misty Clouds.
Ziyan asked in bewilderment. Even though Ziyan had never gone out into the real world, he had read from books about this faction. Ziyan's clan lived in a city named Wutan City, which was part of the Jiama Empire. Even though this city is listed as being one of the bigger cities within Jiama Empire, it was still dwarfed by the size of the empire, despite having the Magic Monsters mountain range behind it. Within the city itself, Ziyan's clan was the biggest. Besides the Z clan, there were 2 other clans that competed with the Z clan. But even after 24 years of blood and strife, they were unable to overtake the Z clan. If the Z clan was the strongest power in Wutan City, then the faction of Misty Clouds would be the strongest power in the entire Jiama Empire. The difference between the Z clan and the faction of Misty Clouds was enormous, to the point where Ziyan's father's Izan, who normally kept a strict and harsh face, was extremely respectful in front of these guests.
Why are they here?
Ziyan whispered. Zana's slim fingers paused.
Maybe it's related to you, Brother Ziyan.
Me, but I don't have any relationship with them.
Hearing Zana's response, Ziyan paused before shaking his head and whispering back.
Do you know the name of the girl up there?
Zana glanced at the girl.
No, do you?
Xiao Yan furrowed his brows as he examined the face of the girl Zana pointed out. He cannot recall ever having seen her before.
She's Nalan Yanran.
A curious expression floated on Zana's face. Ziyan stiffened.
Nalan Yanran, the granddaughter of Nalan Ya, the Lionheart commander of Jiama Empire. She's my fiancée that was set between our families before I was born. Heh, grandfather and Nalan Ya were like blood brothers, and at that time, you and Nalan Yanran were born around the same time, so that it decided that you guys would get married. But, unfortunately, 3 years after you were born, grandfather died in a fight with a clan enemy, and as time passed, the clan's relation with the Nalan family became weaker.
Zana paused and looked at Ziyan, who was absorbed in Zana's story.
Nalan Ya is not only arrogant, he also puts extreme emphasis on promises. The marriage was decided by him, so even though your name has been quite bad the past few years, he has never once thought of annulling the marriage. That geezer sure is quite obstinate.
Ziyan smiled.
Nalan Ya has the final say in all matters within the family, so even though he really is very fond of his granddaughter, no one in the family has stepped up to oppose the marriage.
Zana's beautiful eyes lightly glanced at Ziyan before continuing.
But 5 years ago, Nalan Yanran became a student under the faction leader of Misty Clouds. In these 5 years, Nalan Yanren demonstrated incredible talent. When a person has enough power to change the path of their life, they would try their hardest to change things that they don't like, and unfortunately, she absolutely hates her promised marriage with brother Xian.
You're saying that she came to cancel the marriage.
Ziyan's face darkened. At this moment he was furious, not because Nalan Yanren did not want him, her husband, but rather because Nalan Yanren is trying to cancel the marriage with the entire clan present. If that happens, then his father would lose much of his dignity and respect within the clan. Ziyan slowly breathed in, the cold air calming his raging thoughts. Within his sleeve, Ziyan curled his fist, thinking, if I was a Doshai, who would dare to trample over my dignity? It was true, if Ziyan was a Doshai, then, even if Nalan Yanren had the backing of the faction of Misty Clouds, she would not be able to do such a thing, a 15-year-old Doshai. There were only a few that had such high accomplishments in the entire history of Dochen mainland. And the few people that were at that level when they were that young are now some of the most influential people in the entire Doche world. A small fragile hand cleverly evaded Ziyan's sleeves and held onto Ziyan's hands. Zuna softly said,
Brother Xian, if she really cancels the marriage, then that's her own loss. I believe that in a couple of years, she will be regretting her decisions today.
Regret?
Ziyan sneered.
With my current abilities, I don't have that kind of luxury.
Ziyan paused before changing the tone of his voice.
Wait, Zuna, how are you so familiar with them, the things that you've just said? My father might not even know some of them. How do you know all these?
Zuna stiffened but did not say anything. Looking at Zua's avoidance on the subject, Ziyan could only helplessly smile. Even though Zuna was also part of the Z family, she and Ziyan didn't have any relation by blood. In addition, Ziyan had never seen Zuna's parents, and every time he asked his father about them, Zizan would shake his head and not speak. Soon, Zuna's parents became a taboo subject, something that they seemed to fear speaking about. For Ziyan, Zuna's identity was always veiled in mystery. No matter how hard or how cleverly he tried, Zuna would always stay silent.
Whatever. If you don't want to say it, then don't.
Shaking his head, Ziyan's face suddenly darkened again. The guest elder, under the repeated signals from Nalan Yanren, finally stood up.
Hey, using the faction of Misty Clouds to pressure father. This Nalan Yanren certainly is using some shameless tactics.
Fury began to build within Ziyan's heart.